Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. We want to help more people find the show because it's our listeners that make this thing so interesting and fun. There are 4 ways to support the show that don't cost any money. You can send it to a friend, you can post it on social media, you can follow it, like press the follow button in your podcast app, or you can leave a nice review in the app. Word of mouth is still the #1 way people find new podcasts, so it really, really helps us when you spread the word. And if you want to support the show with your dollars, join the crew of paid subscribers at patreon.com/culturestudy. Paid subscribers get ad-free episodes, private discussion threads, bonus content in every single episode, plus whole bonus episodes every now and then. Just a heads up, we do have a bonus episode in the works about the new Wuthering Heights movie. So again, it's patreon.com/culturestudy to sign up. Okay, thanks. On with today's show. This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Petersen.
And I'm Natasha Vainblad. I'm a comedian and TV writer living in New York City.
Tell me about your one-woman show.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a new stand-up hour, and this is the first time I've done an hour that's not just a collection of my best jokes. This is specifically about how I came to the decision not to have kids. And it was born from sheer confusion and ambivalence about the choice, because I spent years just really unsure, and the only way I know how to process anything as a writer and comedian is to write about it. So it started with just diary entries, and like long-winded journal pieces, and then through several years I coalesced, is that the right word? Or refined? Right? Yeah. Into I think the best thing I've ever written so far. And so it's an hour of stand-up, but there is, an arc, and it feels a little right in the middle of a storytelling show and a stand-up hour.
What is the arc? Because I also think the arc is like people would be like, how is that funny? And I'm like, it's actually pretty funny how you come to these decisions. So,
the realization is ultimately learning that that's what I wanted all along. And it took me forever to trust my choice, which I think is the story for most women who say that they don't want kids, immediately get pushback. We live in a culture where we are, as women, are told not to trust our choices and our instincts unless it's our maternal instinct. And so it's true, right? It's like, it's a joke I have in the show that any other instinct we have, society is like, you're crazy. But if we're like, I want a parasite growing inside of me, everyone's like, yes, that's a good idea. So it just took me so long to be comfortable with trusting my own instincts. So the realization is, I have to be okay with other people seeing me as a freak, and that doesn't mean that that is true to how I actually feel.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about this, I think, through the show.
Please.
Like how other people's momentary perception of you as a freak, like how someone's judgment, like how you can come to this point where you realize that's actually someone else's business. Like what that person thinks of me is their business. It's not mine. Right? Like, it's not my conception of self.
And it's so easy to say, but so hard to actually live.
Yes.
The comfort and the willingness to not control other people's opinions, and also to not feel that those opinions are a reflection on yourself. I mean, it's so hard to do.
Where does the name Childless Freak come from?
It comes from the fact that deep down my fear was that if I lived this life, some people would pity me and others would see me as a childless freak. So me calling the show that ultimately is embracing the reality that might even be the case for some people, that some people might see me that way and it doesn't matter.
Right. Because I think sometimes the impulse is to be like, no, you can live your life and like no one will ever levy this judgment on you. And that's not the case. Like people are going to think that you're a childless freak. You just have to figure out how you feel about it.
Yes. And in little, I think, microaggressions is such a, I feel like now outdated, overused term, but there were all of these as I was grappling with the choice and wondering, why do I keep essentially the show starts with me being like, so I decided I'm not having kids. And then the unraveling of being like, of me thinking that, wait, maybe I've made a terrible mistake. Like I even had my husband get a vasectomy, and post vasectomy, I was like, I think actually this was an error, even though I was the one that brought it up and initially encouraged him to do it. And that was because at every step along the way, people I cared about who loved me would say things that made me think I had done something wrong, or would say things that made me think, oh, wait, this actually is a choice that they are sad for me for, embarrassed, all of those things. So I had to keep pushing back against not only what strangers would say, the hardest part was people who I love and care about and who I know feel the same way about me, but it's just these biases are so deep and they're so ingrained.
Did you have any childless women in your life when you were growing up?
So that was the other element. I had basically one, and I didn't know her very well. Like she wasn't necessarily a part of the family. And I'm an only child too. So it's like, so the quick backstory, as I was born in Russia, and then my parents and I, when I was 7, we moved to the US. And so already my like family was pretty limited to just, my parents, my grandmother, and me. But granted, when we moved to the US, we were in this immigrant neighborhood where it was a bunch of recent Russian immigrants who were coming to the US. And most of those kids and their families kind of became not necessarily my family, but certainly role models and, people who I kind of base my decisions on.
Yeah.
And all of those adults were people with kids. And then their friends were essentially other Russian immigrants with kids.
Yep.
So there were so few adults who didn't have kids. And I would hear the way that my parents and their friends would talk about those people. And it wasn't cruel, but you would just hear little things like, oh, I hope she's okay. I'm sad for her.
Yeah.
That really built a belief system in me that even if that woman seems okay and my immediate impression is, wait, I like her and I actually think I want to be like her, I then immediately question that choice because I remember how other adults saw her and talked about her.
Yes. I think this is very, very common. I also am realizing in you telling me this that immigrant stories are so often family stories.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's
Yes.
someone who comes over by themselves, like it's to form a family, right? Like the narrative is towards family always.
It's such honestly, I didn't think about that until this point too. Yeah, spot on. And something that was really tough was when I told my parents I wasn't going to be having kids, because that also stops that dream. My
Right.
kids would be first generation, and that is just not happening.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that we're having you on the show too, because I think sometimes it's really easy to have these conversations with people who have always been like, no kids from the start. Like that is just their identity. It's very easy for them to talk about it. It's very easy to like allow other people's assumptions about it to bounce off of them. But many, many more people experience this sort of ambivalence. And I actually for me, there's a different universe where I have kids.
Totally.
Like, it's not like I don't like kids. It's that the life I wanted to have right now in this country with this reality could not involve kids.
Yeah, I'm like, I got chills with that statement. Exactly. That's how I feel exactly. And I think for many women, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think this is true, that if you feel ambivalent, it almost feels like, well, then the answer is you do want kids.
Right.
Right? But the reality is, no, that means you're simply not sure. And both options could be options that would make you happy. But right, in this context, in this lifetime, right now, what is the best choice? And that was exactly what happened for me too. I think part of the ambivalence was I honestly, I just never really thought about it. It was always something that I assumed would happen because I grew up in the suburbs surrounded by families,
Yep.
but it was never something I was working towards. So then the deadline kind of came in my mind where I turned 35 and I was like, wait, I'm married. My husband and I have been married for a decade, but we keep being like, yeah, it'll happen when we're ready. And there was no part of me that kept being like, oh, now we're ready. So the clock started, my biological clock was finally ticking. And I also found myself not wanting to freeze my eggs. And that's what everyone was telling me. And so then I thought, okay, if I'm not going to freeze my eggs and I keep delaying this, let me actually take a year to really just think about it. I read like every book under the sun about maternal ambivalence and listen to every podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm like a diligent A+ student, little immigrant girl. I wanted to nail the assignment. And then at the end of it, I still was unsure because ultimately what I needed to do was just trust the decisions I'd already been making, which was not making it a priority.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're talking about the way we talk about not having kids. We're talking about the discourse of not having kids. And we've been doing a series on my newsletter where I talk to people about their vibrant lives that they live without kids. We're essentially like bringing representation to the people because I think a lot of people are like you and me. We just didn't have a ton of people out there who were women specifically who were living these lives who weren't objects of pity, right? Who were that's what we're doing right now. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I wanted to talk about like how we grapple with how people talk to us about it. And we have so many great listener questions. We're going to go through a bunch of them. This first one comes from Melanie.
I have 2 questions. First, one of the common themes that comes up around not having kids is the idea that to be child-free is somehow selfish. Similarly, as a woman who has been vocal about not wanting kids for many years, I've also faced stigmas of being cold, unloving, or somehow deficient as a woman. What's behind all of these biases and assumptions? And second, people have been telling me for over 20 years, since I was 13, I'm now 35, that one day I'll change my mind about not wanting kids, but I'm still happily child-free. Why do people trust me to know myself and what I want, but not when it comes to being a parent or not?
Okay, so I feel like especially that last question is just like made for you.
Yeah, I mean, every piece, I'm like, there's 3 different things I want to talk about in this question.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the last one and then we'll work backwards. Yes. Why do people trust me to know myself? You're like, I'm a grown-ass adult. And they trust you to like, I don't know, do your taxes, but not about being a parent.
I think my thinking is there's a kind read and then there's a more maybe less generous read. Yes. So I think the kinder read of societal pressure is so many people are so fulfilled from their life as parents. And I think for many people that is the biggest meaning maker in their lives. So they want that for other people. I totally get that. Totally. I think the larger piece is we live in a pro-natalist society and it feels like we need to make sense of people by their families, the choices that they make. As it feels like, well, that's how you become an adult. That's how you know somebody is responsible and has entered society as a mature adult.
Yep.
So I think it just is inherent in just the way that we see the world. And I think it's really hard for people, especially if they haven't been brave enough to make a different choice, to see that choice being made by others.
I also think that it's like people who make a different choice than you problematize your choice. I think people oftentimes just want to make a choice and then to live in that choice and not have it questioned. Or just to like feel very, very confident in it. Like it's faith, right? It's very similar to religious faith, I think. When someone who has made a different choice comes along, it introduces that like, what if? It like makes it more difficult to think about that. And so I like that just is a natural way. And it could be any decision. It could be having kids. It could be buying a house. It could be getting married. Like there's so many different life things that someone who has made a different choice and is still happy destabilizes your choice. And so it's almost like you're just trying to get them onto your team so that you are no longer destabilized. Does that make sense?
1000%. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think I always can tell when somebody is comfortable in their life and simply by them not forcing something on me or somebody else. You know, it's such a marker of like, oh, you're fine.
Yeah. That's cool, right? Like they'll react to your life as like, that's cool that you did that, right? Instead of like astonishment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, there's the other parts of her question let's see. Um, the idea that like you'll change your mind, that like, yeah, you feel this way now, but when you like mature, and some of that I think is like you'll get desperate and be like, oh, who's going to take care of me? I don't know. It's something about like people, like as they get older, they're like, well, now I want to be a real adult. That you'll grow out of not wanting kids almost.
Yes, and it reminds me, I wish I remember which of the bajillion books I read about ambivalence. But there was an excellent quote where the author was talking about how one of the biggest fears people have is, will I regret this? Certainly I don't regret this now, but
Hmm.
later in life, will I
Yeah,
regret this
yeah, yeah.
choice? And she said, the best way to tell if you'll feel this way is if you felt this way before. So when
Mm.
you've made other decisions later in life, do you feel this immense sense of regret? One. And two, it's such a limited way of thinking about regret and choice, because even if later in life you get to a point and say, oh, there are these things I would have liked about this life, it doesn't mean that means the feelings will be painful.
Yeah,
It also assumes that you won't change at all.
yeah, 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 yeah.
There's just this weird, I think, something also I ended up realizing, which was, I think in my mind, I assumed that once you get to retirement, almost like your life is done, in that mentally you've done all the work to be happy, and then you'll never be sad again if you've made all the right choices, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've just come to the realization that it's just not the way we live our lives. And thank God, because it would be so boring if you reach this, I don't know, this plateau at 65 and never feel anything but like a bland sense of joy again. That would be
Yeah.
miserable.
It's certainly also not true of the retired people that I know.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of life changing and reinventing and reconfiguration going on.
And who's to say that the kid you have is the exact vision of the kid you're going to have? There's 10,000 different kids out there.
Yes.
It's such a limited belief. Yeah.
Yes.
I've read enough like Reddit regretful parents to know that there's so many unknowns.
Do you feel, I'm just thinking about this as we're talking about like knowing oneself. Do you feel like you trust yourself more now?
Yes.
Just living in this decision. Like you're like, I feel
Um,
like I can make other decisions too.
yes. I mean, I think what I came to realize with this choice too is we really don't, what we should as a society, instead of prescribe the way we people should live, what we should do is teach people to make decisions. That's
Yeah.
really what is
Yeah.
missing from our society, because I didn't have the faculty or the knowledge to make this choice. The only other time I feel like I'd made a big choice was, do I want to get married or not, or what college
Hmm.
do I want to go to? But it's just, why not spend time teaching young people and adults how to decide things for themselves? We would have
Right.
such a healthier society.
I think a lot of the friction that we have in our lives now, and I think this is particularly acute for women, but I think everyone feels it, is that we ostensibly live in a society where we have liberty to do anything that we want, right?
Hmm.
Ostensibly. And this is like freedom is like the undergirds all of these different things, right? Especially if you're a conservative, ironically, when
Hmm.
actually there are these prescribed norms that really dictate what we understand as like the available paths for a person.
And these celebrated paths forward.
Yes.
It's just so funny because now it's holiday season, and so we're getting all of these, Christmas cards and these holiday cards, and I think they're really fun. I think it's
Yeah.
so sweet that people think about us and send us a card. But it is also such a like hammering home of, this is success. This is the way you live your life. Your
Hmm.
family gets bigger, your house gets bigger, you have more kids, you have more pets. Whereas, because every year I'm like, we got to send a card and do something funny with our card that just pushes the envelope of what is
Totally.
normal.
Totally.
And then every year I don't prioritize it. But it's such little things like that. I'm like, it really is reminding us that there is one path that is celebrated in our culture.
Yes. Well, and this gets to the idea, the first part of this listener's question about how being child-free is selfish. And actually, a recent interview that we did in the newsletter with the author Maggie Shipstead was about, like, at the heart of the conversation was this idea that actually it's the inverse if you think about it. Like, reproducing yourself is somewhat selfish. Like, but I think there's two different understandings of what selfish is here, and maybe that's where this gets confused.
Totally. I mean, and I think, I think the question itself is wrong because neither choice is inherently selfless or selfish.
Yes.
It depends. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
Because, if I am raising a kid for my legacy because I want them to be a reflection of me in the world that reflects positively back on me, that's kind of selfish. And if instead I'm like, I'm not going to have kids because I know if I had a kid, I would spend most of my energy raising this one kid, where instead what I could do is give back to society, volunteer, etc. That's quite selfless. But if instead it's like, well, I was about to be like, oh, but instead if I don't volunteer and just focus on myself, I still am like, I don't think that's selfish, because the better balanced of a human you can be in a society, the better it is for society.
Yeah. No, and I think too about, like, a lot of people in the comments of that post were talking about how, like, I am chronically ill, and, like, if I had kids, I would not be able to focus on keeping myself healthy. So how do you, like, is that selfish, right? Maybe because
Yeah.
it's about maintaining the self, right? Maintaining the health of the self. But I also think we venerate people who sacrifice the self in ways that are not always healthy and that actually create really toxic home environments, and, like, or people who are forced into parenthood and don't want to be parents. This is so true of, like, even 2 generations ago, like, just not even having that choice about having kids or how many kids you want to have, and how that affects your kids too.
Totally. I think maybe my bold statement is, I think being a happy person is the best thing you can do for society.
Yeah. Figuring
Because
out what that looks like. Right. Yeah.
or being fulfilled, because then in little ways you're less snippy at the grocery store. But on top of that, you're more giving and grateful of your time and energy. So entirely. Yeah. I'm like, I think you got to figure out what makes you happy first. And if kids is not that, then don't do it. It'll only make you miserable, and then the rest of your life and world will be miserable.
And then your kids will spend a lot of time figuring out how to grapple with, like, your misery.
Yes, and will like know that you feel that you're miserable. Yeah, I think it's just so toxic.
The Culture Study podcast is sponsored by Article. So the other day, I have this new friend who is an interior designer come over to the house, just like as a friend. And she was looking around and she was like, wow, that bar cart is really nice. Bar cart from Article. And that's the thing, is that even an interior designer with, like, really amazing taste could pick it out and say, like, it's really lovely. Right now, I'm obsessed with the Conan 54-inch round dining table that's in walnut. It's like mid-century style, really beautiful, elegant, feels like it's going to last forever. And then you pair it with the Meha dining chair. It comes in walnut, and then it has this, like, very subtle sage green seat. It just looks very comfortable to me, and also, like, will last forever. The Culture Study podcast loves Article because they make it effortless to create a stylish, long-lasting home at an unbeatable price. Article takes great care in curating its collection, focusing solely on high-quality, meaningful pieces, like this dining room table, that will stand the test of time. There's no filler. Every item is chosen for its craftsmanship, design, and lasting value. And you can immediately tell the difference in quality when you receive an Article piece. And other people will remark on it, like the interior designer who came to my house. I've had many of the Article items in my house for nearly 6 years now, and they still look fantastic. Article also offers fast, affordable shipping across the US and Canada. This is hugely important when you live in a remote area like I do. And they have options for professional assembly if you prefer a hands-off experience. And with Article's 30-day satisfaction guarantee, you can shop with confidence, knowing that if you're not completely in love with your new furniture, you can easily return it. So if you're in the market for a beautiful new sofa, a gorgeous new dining set, or a new bed, head over to article.com. This episode of the Culture Study Podcast is brought to you by Graza, makers of amazingly fresh olive oil and other delicious stuff made with amazingly fresh olive oil. Graza's got everything you need to roast, toast, grill, and garnish with flair and flavor. You can upgrade all of your favorite recipes and maybe even try something new. There's the extra virgin olive oil for cooking and dressing. I use that on what we call it in my family, mash, which is like a mix of like sauteed tofu using the olive oil. Gets it perfectly crisp. Broccoli, quinoa, Brussels sprouts. It's very good. It's hippie shit, but it's really good. And seriously, last night I made it using Graza. They also have the Frizzle high heat cooking oil for grilling and frying, and brand new olive oil mayos. Mayos, I love mayo, for dipping and spreading. It's top shelf stuff for everyday enjoyment. Graza's olive oil is always fresh, it's never blended, and it's made with the world's best olives. Plus, you can even see the harvest date on every bottle. They also have the Drizzle, I forgot to mention, the Drizzle, a punchy, flavorful finishing oil that's perfect for dressing a salad, dipping bread, or giving anything that you want just that little bit of like olive oil taste on top. It's good for like any soup that asks you to do just like a tiny little drizzle of olive oil on top. And new from Graza, in stores only, mayo and aioli made with world-class olive oil. There's rich and creamy original mayo, bold and tangy fancy mayo. I want the fancy mayo. And zesty garlic aioli. We love Graza. So head to graza.co and use Culture Study to get 10% off your first order of olive oil. And be sure to look for Graza mayo the next time you're at your local grocery store. Okay, next question is about some of the cliched responses that people get when they are somehow backed into the corner. Like this is how I think of sometimes not having kids. It's like someone like asks you 3 questions and each one is like getting closer and closer to like saying like, so you don't have any children. Like this. But okay, here's the question from Jen.
I have many child-free humans in my life, and I'm aghast at some of the reactions they've gotten. For example, someone told my BFF that their house was just too big for only them, and they should have kids. My question is about the rhetorical hoops people, women, femme-presenting usually, have to go through to justify their choices or their current child-free status in ways that I don't as a parent. Why do some folks never connect what they say to child-free people to the same tired patterns? Why can't some people just mind their own business about others' reproductive choices or circumstances?
I mean, this is the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have another joke in the show where it's like I dress pretty kooky and that it's one for fashion, but 2, it gives people pause because they're like, oh, she's not a mom. She's a tween who's been Freaky Friday'd, so I guess I won't ask her about kids. It's so exhausting. I hate it. I hate it. Yeah, I think people ask because they just don't think. You know, I think it's that same like I live in a world where the assumption is you should have kids. So if you've got a house with an extra bedroom, you got to have a kid in it.
Totally. You're like that's where my Peloton lives. At least that's what it is in my house. We got rid of the bed. Like it's a bedroom that could be a bed. And we're like, nope, that's where the Peloton lives now. Sorry. And also like our miscellaneous shit that we don't have to clean up because no one cares. Do you sometimes take pleasure though now in like people's discomfort? Because I do. It took a while, but I'm
took
that place.
so long. Yeah. And I think what I do is I don't follow up with more excuses about why.
Totally.
It's incredible. You just say like, because I wanted to, because I like it. I realize it's what I want. This is the way I wanted to live my life, period.
Yes.
And it really is jarring for people because they do expect it to come with, a treasure trove of excuses as to why you're validating your choice. There is something so confident in just standing your ground, and not in a combative way, but simply in a sense of ease and comfort.
Yes. I think like even well-meaning people, if you just are like, do you have kids? And you're like, nope. Like, because I think sometimes the impulse, at least for me as like a people pleaser, is to be like, no, we have our dogs, or like,
Yes.
just, like just to come up with different things. The other thing that this makes me think of is how some people like really go to the thing like, no, but I like I spend so much time with other people's kids, or I love being an auntie, that sort of thing, which is me. But I want to always like make sure and figure out ways to not like rhetorically apologize in that way, because I think it's also okay just to not like kids. It's okay.
Fully. Yeah. I used to do that too. I used to be like, but I like kids,
Yeah.
but. And so then I just started practicing saying no and practicing the inflection. So I would be like, because I didn't want to say no as if it's, to go down, as
Yeah,
if it's sad.
totally.
I also
No.
didn't, yeah. Or like a hard no, I also didn't want to do. So
Uh-huh.
so it's just like you say no, but with a smile and like an
Yeah.
ease. I think of like, just, like kind of brush it off. Just like, no.
I think I say
Do you?
nope. I say nope.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Casual. Nope.
Nope. Just pause.
Done.
Let it
Yeah.
be there. Someone pushed back on like people saying that they don't want to have kids because they don't like kids. They said like that's like, we just it's not okay to say you don't like a whole swath of the population. Like we wouldn't say I don't like elderly people.
Sure.
But I think like that we're not talking about raising elderly people. Do you know what I mean? Like we're talking about like I don't like kids, and I also know that it would be really hard for me to like live with a kid for 18 years and be responsible for them.
Yeah. I have a joke where I'm like, I actually would prefer to raise an elderly person. Just there, you can leave them in a hot car. They don't mind. They like it.
Yeah, it was like much better at games.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that, because I do think that does sound very antagonistic to be like, I
Yes.
don't like kids, especially if that person has kids. And I do want to come at this with a sense of compassion. And I think, again, if you, as the person who doesn't have kids, exude a sense of calm and ease and comfort with your choice, I think that can blend into or can bleed into other people seeing it as something that is just freeing and fun to choose, as opposed to this militant kind of, no, I hate kids.
Yes.
But I think there's nothing wrong with, the acknowledging the fact that I don't want this responsibility. This doesn't seem like it would be fun and fulfilling to me. Kids are so difficult. So if you don't, in the same way that it's, I guess not in the same way, but it's okay to not have pets. No one gets mad at you for that, or to choose a different
Some
job.
people are like, it's not okay for you to not like dogs. I'm like, it is okay. That's your life. You get to not like dogs. As long as you're not like yelling at my dog from across the street, like, I hate dogs. Like, how dare you get a dog, right? Like that's the thing, right? Is that respect for others' choices. Okay, next question comes from Leah.
I'm 28 years old and have never wanted kids. I've always explained to people that I just want dogs. I really do just want dogs. People used to laugh this off. I'm now at the age where people push back. While it's easier to rebuff people I don't care about, it's way harder to explain my reasoning to my friends who are pregnant or actively trying to conceive. How do I best explain my lifestyle goals to my friends who are making different choices? I want to be supportive of my friends without the pressure to live their same lives.
I love this question. I definitely felt this.
Yeah, I think for a while I also overcorrected, where I was just always asking them so many questions about their pregnancy, and like just I feel like overcompensating, because I was worried that they thought that I was like, oh, I don't want kids. I don't like your life. And so therefore I would be like, oh, tell me everything, And then I found that I was leaving no space for myself in the conversation,
Yeah.
It's a delicate dance, and I think it'll just be difficult always. But I think if it's a strong friendship, it will grow and stand the test of time if both of you are coming at it from a place of compassion. But there's not a one-size-fits-all piece of advice for this one.
The one thing I would tell Leah is that it's almost like trying to like get you to start a new hobby at the same time or like run a marathon with me. And I'm not trying to be dismissive here. Like, I think that it feels more fun to be doing parenthood with your best friends. Like, I think that
Fully.
it feels more like we're going to be able to like talk about these things that we're experiencing and like do all that together. And you can still talk about those things with your friends who aren't pregnant or aren't trying to conceive or don't have kids. But it's a little bit, they're just like not as invested in the marathon plan. But with that said, once we got past like age 1, 2, no one was trying to make me have kids after that.
Yeah, it is. It's true where it's like when they're in the thick of it, which is those early years. Yeah, it's like it's all they have time to focus on. So I'm like, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, the intensity of the pressure fully decreases once their kids are like 5.
Yeah. And also, I think it's easier once you're through the thicket to be like, I can see how maybe you like this is a life that you wanted to stay in. At least for my friends, that has been like, they're like, I see the benefits of your choice. I love my kids, and also I see the benefits of your choice.
Totally, which is the best. Yeah, I have most of my friends are in that camp where, I get a lot of like, yeah, you really don't have to have kids. And I know that they love their kids, but it's wonderful. I feel very lucky where the pressure I actually, and maybe it's because I live in New York, so many of the women friends who I have who did have kids had them late and very much also have careers. I mostly felt that kind of pressure from family as opposed to friends.
Yeah. Okay, next question is about some of this, like, how do you figure into other people's lives-ness? This comes from Martha.
Why is it that the nuclear family stereotype is such a sticky archetype and people can't conceive of other ways of being? I'm a very proud auntie figure in lots of kids' lives, and I feel like those relationships are the most fulfilling to me. But people often see my childless state as sad or a waste, when to me, I have kids. I just haven't birthed them, and I don't live with them.
This is very familiar to me. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, and it was the reason it took me so long to decide because I saw the adults in my life have those reactions to these women.
Yeah.
I think I think we combat this with time, having podcasts like this, you doing your series, because the more people see that this is a way to live, the more comfortable they are asking questions about it, seeing it as a positive as opposed to a negative. So I think the more exposure we have of these lives and people celebrating their choice, the easier it is going to be to let go of this assumption that is still so deep and ingrained in most people's understandings of a life without kids.
Yeah, and just this idea too that like, a lot of the people that I've heard from about their very happy childless lives are also educators, right? They're like,
Yes.
I have so many kids in my life like that, and this is a role that is often celebrated without question, but somehow like if you don't also have kids yourself, like it's somehow less than or something like that. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's where I'm like, wow, a teacher who doesn't have kids, that feels incredible because that person, is just going to have so much more room in their world for reaching out, and going beyond just the classroom and being a mentor.
Yeah. And also just being an example. And I think you're totally right that this is like, we are in a generational shift right now. Us, Gen X, like I think this is the first generation of not just having like one person in your life who stood out, right? But several, like a multiplicity of ways of being a person without kids.
Totally.
What a feast of representation.
I mean, we are that representation for a future generation. And that feels really exciting.
Yeah. Support for the Culture Study podcast comes from Remy. I know a lot of people who deal with involuntary teeth clenching and grinding. It gives them the worst headaches. It just sets them off on their day horribly. And they know that they want to do something about it, But it's such a pain in the butt to go to the dentist to get these impressions. Like, they just keep putting it off. Like a lot of adults who have too much going on in their lives and just like delay stuff that is causing them everyday chronic pain that's not so horrible, like that they can't get through the day. They just kind of deal with it. But life would be so much better if they did deal with it. There's a very simple fix for this specific problem. Remy. Remy night guards are clinically tested and FDA cleared to prevent teeth damage from grinding, to reduce jaw tension and facial muscle strain, and to improve your sleep quality. You get the same professional quality and comfort as a night guard from the dentist for 80% less of the cost by taking your own impression from the convenience of your home. Here's how it works. After purchase, your impression kit comes straight to your door. You follow Remy's step-by-step instructions to get your perfect impression. Remy then crafts and ships you your custom-fit night guard. You get your night guard back, and you can start protecting your teeth. So join 350,000 other Americans who are protecting their teeth with Remy, and use code CULTURE to get 50% off your new night guard. That's 50% off at Shop Remy, shop REMI.com/culture with code CULTURE. Thank you, Remy, for sponsoring this episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Lola Blankets. Melody, how many Lola Blankets have you given as gifts?
3. And I can say this now because we are recording this a few hours before I'm going to hand over the final 2. So tomorrow, the friends listening to this will already have received their blankets, and I cannot wait to give it to them.
Describe to me the sort of person that you give a Lola blanket to, and sort of reason.
Your Lola blanket recipient loves to be cozy. Somebody who does everything and just deserves to be embraced by the softest blanket they've ever felt when they finally sit down on the couch at night.
Yes, and have it be their blanket and
Yes.
theirs alone.
And it's for the person who never buys nice things for themselves.
Totally, 100%. I am obsessed with my blanket. We talk about these blankets all the time on this podcast. It's such a joy to be like, this is my blanket. This is not your blanket.
Every single night in the past couple of weeks, I've been laying down on the couch, pulling my Lola blanket up to my neck and watching the Olympics. And it just, the comfort and the relaxation that flows through my nervous system when I'm under my Lola blanket, unmatched.
I'm so cozy. It's everything I ever dreamed, like what it would be like being an adult and having your own room and just like having blankets all around you all the time. That's the Lola experience.
It's like what I imagine royalty felt like when they had like bearskin rugs or blankets.
Totally. So what is the Lola blanket? It's crafted with ultra soft luxury faux fur and a signature 4-way stretch. So it is much softer than any other faux fur blanket. Like there are other blankets that look a lot like this. They're not the same. There's a reason why it's called the world's #1 blanket. It is the gift that people like us can't stop raving about. For a limited time, our listeners can get 40% off select Lola blanket products with code CULTURE at checkout. Just head to lolablankets.com and use code CULTURE. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and let them know that we sent you. Let's segue onto this next question because it actually grapples with one of my favorite parts of not having kids, which is when kids ask you questions about not having kids. This comes from Elizabeth.
I'd love to hear folks' thoughts or advice on how to talk to kids about being an adult that doesn't have kids. I grew up with several child-free adults in my life, and now that I'm a child-free adult myself, I appreciate their example, but I never asked them about it. My friends' kids are getting to the ages where they start to ask questions like this, and I don't have a great answer for them. It feels weird to say, oh, we didn't want any kids, to a kid's face. For what it's worth, I usually say something like, no, but we have a dog. Do you have any pets? But I'd prefer not to deflect, especially because I don't want to give the impression that it's anything other than a valid choice that my partner and I are happy with.
All right, so I have my responses, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky one because you definitely don't want the kid to feel bad.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the dog one is great. The only issue is like it does then make it seem like, well, I have to compensate with something.
Mm-hmm.
I think a great answer is the closest to truth without being, simplifying it for, kid logic, which is, I thought about it and we decided we wanted to live this way. I don't know. It's immediately I'm answering it and I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound good. That's word salad.
I think I'm just like, I'm more of a troll with kids sometimes. Like just in a funny way. So I'll be like, I don't know, I just didn't want to. And they're like, okay. And then like, also, I'm not married because I didn't want to. And they're like, and that to them, like sometimes, and this is not, I think, like anyone's fault, but just there's this assumption that like, oh, if two people live together, they are married. I used to think that if my next door neighbor and I had our swings aligned in the same way, right, that also meant that we were married. So kids believe all sorts of things. But I like just kind of bursting that bubble in a way that's like not a huge deal. Just be like, yeah, you don't have to. Like no one
I
says
think
you
that's
have to.
key. Yeah, in the like I think a lot of times as a kid, you assume there are things you have to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And marriage feels like a thing you have to do. Having kids feels like a thing you have to do. But simply saying, I didn't want to, so I didn't do it is incredible.
Yeah. I also say, and now I get to hang out more with you.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Which is it like that wouldn't work so much for someone that you don't know, but like for my friends' kids that I do actually like, we have this conversation often when we have been hanging out for a while. Like, that's the great way to be like, and now I have more time for you, which is something that I just like. I had adults in my life, some who had kids and some who did not, who were really, really important to me. And it was really important in hindsight to have adults who were not my parents, who like just that I knew really well and that I knew I could depend on, and who just like, wore different clothes and like came from different places and had different educational backgrounds and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, there was a woman who was a child-free woman who was a mentor to me from like high school on. And I am so grateful that she was in my life because not only was it fun to see somebody who was child-free, but also there was just I think when you have an adult in your life who isn't a parent, there's just such a level of ease to that relationship because there's less pressure, where that adult can just see you for who you are without all of these other concerns about you are a reflection of me and what does this say about our family. Yeah. It's so vital. I mean, it takes a village, right, is what everybody says. And so much of that village should be child-free people.
I'll also say, because we get this question a lot, like, how do I become that person in someone else's life? And there are ways that you can become that person through organizations. Like Big Brother, Big Sister is still a huge deal and really important to lots and lots of kids. And like there are writing mentorship programs. Like there are so many different ways that like if you do not have the natural apparatus of like friends who have kids in your life, like you can still do that, right?
1,000%. Even if there are like hobbies that you have,
Totally.
inevitably there is some like most likely a kid version. So I remember there was like a storytelling workshop I taught specifically in high schools, because I already was really into storytelling.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, how do I do that, but then also give back in some way? So if you have a passion, inevitably there'll be some youth-oriented organization that fosters a connection that way.
And like if you are into quilting, like maybe your local quilters guild has like something for kids that you're like, I could volunteer at that and stuff. It's kind of like when you're trying to make friends, like as an adult, like
yes,
you have to put the effort out there in order for it to happen. But at the same time, it's also kind of a long game. And like, you're not going to have a kid who's like hugging your leg and being like, you're my best friend on the first day or something. You actually might, but sometimes it might take a while for like for any kid to warm up to you or for you to feel comfortable or like everything's, I don't know, it feels just overdetermined. But like it's worth it if this is something that you feel like you want in your life. And I want to underline that because not everyone is finding their fulfillment through being around other kids. They might find it through like helping other adults in other ways, right? Or like, there's just so many ways you can find this.
Totally. And it's like, or helping just a totally different population, age-wise especially, because I do think there is a lot of richness that comes from hearing from people who are in a different part of their lives. But yeah, it doesn't mean it has to be kids.
Yeah. I think it's fun to play with kids. Like, do you ever get like my friends who are parents don't really like quote unquote playing because they have to do it so much, right?
Yes.
But like, here I come, the like, well rested adult who doesn't have to play all the time. And I'm like, let's be weird. Like,
Totally. I can't. We have friends who have kids who are like 2, right? Or maybe about to be 3. And I'm just waiting until they're like 5 and 6 and we can really like put on wigs. I have so many just props and costumes from my time in doing sketch comedy theater in New York that I cannot wait to write little plays with them.
Yep.
Yeah. And exactly. I'm like, I'm well rested. I have the energy for this. And also I can leave in a few hours.
I can leave.
You know?
I get to leave. It's the best.
And then I get to be in my quiet house. It's incredible.
And not talk to anyone, just like recover. It's so good. Melody, I feel like I want to ask you a little bit about what do you do when kids ask you if you have kids?
I was thinking about this. I don't think I've ever had a kid ask me. Yeah.
Maybe you just got no kids energy, Melody.
Yeah, maybe. I just exude impatience. It was always awkward though, like when I was still doing church things and adults would ask me, do you have kids? And I would try to just be like, no. But they were always kind of like, oh, like it's just presumed that it's like sad and that I don't actually want it to be that way.
Right.
But I also still feel like I'm like 12 years old. Why do people want me to have children?
They're just asking like a 17-year-old, like, do you have any kids?
Sorry, I'm not a teen mom at age 36.
Totally. No, I think that that's really true. And we actually just, on the newsletter, we published an interview with a pastor about not having kids. Because like, I think that that's like, there are certain types of professions, and we were kind of talking about this with like teachers, where there's this like understanding that because you do work with kids or whatever, that like you should also have kids in your life. Mm-hmm. But also men don't get that. We haven't even talked about how men don't get asked these questions.
I know.
Natasha, has your husband, does he get asked these questions? How does he deal with this?
No, he doesn't. And it was because we were both for a long time ambivalent. Mm-hmm. And then once we decided, he was off to the races pumped. Where I was like, oh, did not know that we were so excited to not have kids. Mm-hmm. And so my husband's so funny and also just very much like enjoys contrarian conversations in a way that I'm like, no, I just want everyone to be comfortable, where he just does not care. So yeah, whenever he's like, oh God, I hate them, he'll just say something comedic. We're just like, God, I don't want to be sick every day for the rest of my life.
That's real.
Yeah. No, and I do think too that like there's more space for that contrarianness. Do you think men have more space for ambivalence just generally? Like they don't have to know exactly what they want?
No, I would say they just have a different pressure. I was reading this Jungian, I'm like really into, because I have the time, I'm really into like Jungian, therapy. I've just been reading a bunch of books about it because I find it fascinating. And this one therapist was saying how it is frustrating because, and I'm making generalizations, but for women in our society, our roles are much more prescribed. Mm-hmm. We are the support system. It's all of these pressures where we have to kind of support the men in our lives and get to make less choices. But we are allowed to have an emotional network of friends. Like it is normal for us to have friends who we talk to about our inner lives, our feelings. We are allowed and in fact encouraged to process our worlds. Where men, the pressure instead is you have to be a provider and you have to achieve. And a lot of times it's like these career successes. They just have so little room for the freedom to be like, here's how I feel about this. What do you think? Like, let's talk about emotions and emotional responses. So I think they have pressures, but they're just different. And I don't want their pressures either.
I know,
and
totally
I
agree.
feel like the stakes are so much lower for men, too. Like, they're not the ones who are going to die in childbirth. They can change their mind until they're dead if they want to have a kid or not. And a lot of times they could even just peace out. Even if they decide they want a kid, they're just like, actually, I don't want to. And then they leave. So it's like, it's just not as permanent of a choice for men.
Their body isn't colonized for several years.
Yeah.
You know,
and then permanently changed after. Yeah. I used to, and this was even before I just realized I was ambivalent about having kids. My previous stand-up album, I had a joke about how I'm like, well, I want to be the dad. That's what I want. What I want is to be the
100%.
dad.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much more freedom. You get to leave, you get to not be physically tied, you know, to this creature that needs every part of you at every moment.
This beautiful baby who needs part of you at every moment. Well, and this is too, I mean, I think we're trying to be really careful about like language here, and because this isn't an episode about language, but I even feel like, you know, you say something like creature and someone's like, oh, well, that person hates kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I say like, you know, colonize, it's like, oh, well, like that really, like, you're using aggressive language to talk about how this works. And part of it is
this beautiful angel.
I know, right? Well, and then I take, when someone talks about like the beautiful gift of motherhood, like that to me is aggressive language. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fraught. It's so, because it's like, this really is such a big decision for everybody that, I mean, it points to all the questions we talked about, where I think, again, if we were taught to be comfortable in making our own choices and it was okay to live differently than other people, a lot of this would go away.
This is a great place for us to end. Natasha, this has been such a delight. Everything that I hope for. If people want to find more of you on the internet, where can they find you?
So if you want to find me, the best place is Instagram. I post about all the shows I'm doing all over the city at Natasha Vainblot. And I am doing Childless Freak again in New York City. So please, please come. It's at Joe's Pub on Tuesday, April 28th at 9:30 p.m.
Fantastic. I hope we can have you on again because this is great. So.
I loved it. Thank you so much. It was so fun.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Today, paid subscribers got a bonus segment where Melody and I talked about how to actually become a cool adult in your friends' kids' lives. Lots of advice there. So if you want to get that bonus content, join the crew of paid subscribers at patreon.com/culturestudy. Paid subscribers get ad-free episodes, private discussion threads, and bonus content in every single episode. Plus, whole bonus episodes every now and then. Next week, we're going to have one all about the new Wuthering Heights movie. It's going to be me, Melody, and the great Margaret Willison talking all about it, so you don't want to miss that one. Again, it's patreon.com/culturestudy to sign up. And there are 4 ways to support the show that don't cost any money. You can send it to a friend. That's huge. Post it on social media. Follow the show in your podcast app. Again, just a very small thing that does a whole bunch. Or leave a nice review in the app. Word of mouth is still the #1 way people find new podcasts, so it really, really helps us when you spread the word. If you want to suggest a topic, ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, go to our Google form at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod, or check the show notes for a link. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne-Helen Petersen, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne-Helen Petersen, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod.